Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. The problem in manufacturing, disconnection. Our solution, connection. And how we get there is curiosity. This is the mantra that I've been speaking and has been resonating with a lot of manufacturers. And we look at connection as that power of being seen, heard, and valued. Underneath all that, there's a foundation, and that's our relationships. We haven't talked about that as much in regards to, in manufacturing, we want to be mindful. We want to have relationships, but what does that actually mean as far as relationships? Like how deep or wide is that? And we're going to talk about that today. And I brought on my good friend and fellow huge fan of the Tragically Hip and Canadian living in Florida. Corban David Jenai is a 5-time entrepreneur, artist, world traveler, and father of 6. That's 3 times me. After being diagnosed with PTSD several years ago, he went on a journey of healing and found a new calling in helping others to find healing in their lives. Now he's the Chief Hope Officer at HopeGuide and podcasts as well regularly on the How We Heal podcast. Welcome, Corban.
Thank you, my friend. It's so good to see you.
So we've talked a little bit before about this whole relationships at work and at home. And we've met in the last year and we connected very quickly, sharing some stories about each other. And it wasn't I make a joke because some of the other people that I've met lately, or maybe in the last couple of years, I talk about sports teams because I thought it was a good way to make connection. and then it's like, well, I don't follow sports. And really, like, we're talking about somebody else, right? We're not. But when you and I met, we started talking about each other, and it was like, and then that really kind of built our relationship. And you kind of find that?
Oh, for sure, Trev. I mean, listen, I think he was Eleanor Roosevelt, and I might be making this up completely because I do have a tendency to do that from time to time without knowing I'm doing it. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt that said that there's like a hierarchy of the quality of conversation, and it starts with talking about things, and then it's talking about other people. This would be the next tier up. But then it's talking about ourselves, and then the next one is ideas. I think I completely fudged that up, but the point of it is that yes, talking about ourselves and the real things in our lives is a very good way to start a connection, and I think it's the reason why we have the one that we do.
Yeah, and the other one I've heard is better conversations are about ideas.
Yes, and
then weaker conversations are about other people, which is probably the lowest level of conversation. And then the other one is like events. And that's probably what I'm used to. So I'm still learning to have more meaningful conversations. Hanging out with people like you definitely helps.
Well, it's a safer way. It's a safer way to have conversations because there's nothing on the line if you're talking about events, right? It's like, it doesn't really matter what you think. It doesn't really matter what I think. But as soon as you start talking about ourselves, our hearts, and the ideas that we attach a lot of value to, that gets a lot. That is a path to vulnerability, and then vulnerability is a path to connection.
Now, we're not saying, because often we might get moved to a different plant, a different team when we're a leader in manufacturing. And even if I've had conversations with a new leader, sometimes they feel that pressure of just getting some results. But the ones that are always successful are the ones that are able to just kind of like sit in their heels and just kind of listen and get to know people. And first, right, we got to listen first and kind of, because once you have that trust, then when you do need to give feedback on performance, quality, safety, whatever that might be, you've got that foundation. So if you're a new leader in manufacturing, and you got a new team of 10 people or you get some new people in, where's the best place to start?
Well, I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, I don't know if you remember Zig, but he was a motivational speaker. And I believe it was him that said that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I think that there is, and I don't think you can fake that. I think that people try to fake it. They try to pretend like they care. But I think if it's not coming from a place of actually like caring about the people that you're working with, I just don't think it lands. So I think the first place is not to show them that you care, but is actually to care about what's important to them. What are their priorities? what matters to them? Why are they even doing this job? Why did they accept the promotion or pursue the promotion to that particular position? Or if you're the leader leading a team, why are they in the position that they're in? And that takes some time, and it really takes some attention. People believe that does not directly correlate to results. But as an entrepreneur myself, who's built a number of businesses and sold them over the last 15 years, I know that I've always got the best performance out of my team when the first thing I cared about was them and how I could serve them. Like that was like the starting place. And then it was how we serve our customers. And then eventually we call it 360-degree wins. We would go to, well, then at the very end, if we could make sure that they won and that their priorities were being met and the customer's priorities being met, turned out that we did pretty well as well. So,
yeah, here I am asking, like, how do you approach it? And you're like, Trevor, really more comes from that heart, right? It starts with, you got to actually care first. And so if I'm coaching a leader, Ryan, they're like, well, I don't care that much because I'm more concerned about my family and I'm carrying it here as a job. I get stuck on those situations with that leader because it's like, do you really not care? Like, I don't know.
I think sometimes a path, Trevor, to caring, you're in a situation like that. Maybe there's a rotating door of workers that come in and leave and there's a fast turnaround or whatever. It can get a little exhausting. You can sort of have like compassion overload or caring overload. I think that one of the ways that we can find that is actually to identify what's important to us and assume that the person that we're working with might have something in the proximity of that. And if we can sort of have a little bit of care and compassion for that within ourselves, I think we can use that as an avenue to caring about the other people who might have something similar. We can always, having curiosity is a great thing too, right? Asking questions, etc. As you know, I think I don't, if somebody says they don't care, I just don't generally believe them. I think everybody has access to that. Maybe they're just not connecting that care to that particular person, but like, I think they can find it.
That's a good idea on just to how to carry that conversation, because what I've run into is that sometimes it's like, hey, this is my family at home and this is what I really care about. And then this is just my work. But I think what I would say now after listening to you is kind of like, so what about their families, right? Like, are you curious about their families? And maybe they're kind of in the same boat. And is that a good conversation to have? And maybe that builds a connection because we're all here, we have families, and maybe that is part of that common ground and why we need to care for each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the ideas too, right, is this whole, some plants, have 15 people and some plants have 1,500.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that breadth of connection and depth of connection.
Oh man. Well, we live in a world, and I don't know that it's necessarily, I don't want to say it's necessarily good or bad. It's just the development of humans. We've moved from small little tribes to being in small cities to, larger communities, larger cities, having the development of the addition of all these, this technology from moving here and there and eventually going to the internet. And every one of these, from the internet to things like social media, each one of these steps has given us the opportunity to connect with more people, which sounds like a really great thing, because if connection is good, then connecting with more people would be even better. But there's this thing called Dunbar's number, which was developed by I believe, a psychologist back in the 1990s, if I remember correctly. And he hypothesized that we have an average of 150 people that we can maintain stable relationships with. After that, there was some validation based on cell phone data in Europe that showed that the number was somewhere around, I think it was 176, but it's between 150 and 200 is kind of like the numbers that are bandied about. That when we have connections with more people, we just don't have the space in our brains. We don't have the capacity to have as deep of a connection with each one of those. And so I talk about, trading depth of connection for breadth of connection. And the average person now in North America has over 600 contacts that they're trying to maintain some level of relationship with. Now, that doesn't mean they're best friends and they're going out for beers with everybody and stuff. But it's like, but because our attention is spread so thin amongst all these people, we're not able to get to those deeper levels with a lot of people. And as a result, so many people feel lonely and isolated and disconnected. And, we look around and see like the number of people that feel lonely now is higher than it's ever been in recorded history. Same with depression, same with anxiety. All of these things that they were seeing, we're like, well, why is that? Well, it's because that we have become addicted to distraction. We've we've bought the lie that connecting with more people is better, and we don't have those really deep heart connections with people. And so, my remedy for that is like, how can we go deep with a few people? It turns out that if you have a few people that are really close that you connect with, I know this isn't about manufacturing now necessarily, although it could also be. I think there's a case to be made for smaller teams, in my opinion, when we can connect with more a smaller group of people, but like really go there, let them see us, let them hear us. I call this being a witness. If we can be a witness for them and they can be a witness for us, to see us, to hear us, to feel us as we are, and vice versa, my God, there's nothing better than that. And I think that's the foundation of everything, including productivity, Trevor. Yeah. Like if we want our people to be more productive, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. If we want that, then is there a better way than them actually being motivated by us? Like, I don't mean like,
let's make some parts today.
Yeah. But I mean, like, Jay, they just really want us to also win. How do you get there? Like, if they really, really care about our respect as a leader, for example, if we're leading a team at a manufacturing plant, if we really care about them respecting us as a leader, they've got to know that we actually care about them. And so that's really hard to do when you have a team of, like, I don't know anybody who personally has a team of 1,500 direct reports. So that would be pretty hard to manage, I assume. But when you have a smaller team, you can really invest in them. Or if you just take the time and attention to invest in individual people at a deeper level, most of the time you see their productivity increase. And I've seen that over and over and over again in the teams that I've built.
That is music to me. That is the tragically hip music right there. Because it just, even though it seems like that sounds really logical when I hear it, I don't often see it. Right. Mm-hmm. I just don't see the demonstration enough. And so, and Diana and I being partners in our business here. And, so she's at a plant right now. And, when she just describes it, right, when you need to get something out, we need to get something done, whatever team she's working with, and she goes to different plants for short periods of time, they get behind her, is because her ability to develop that relationship, right? It's like they feel seen, like it's the good mornings, and in the morning, it's kind of like they know about each other. And one of the tips here is what you said earlier. It's not about always just listening and then remembering about their kid's baseball game. It's about the exchange. It's about the vulnerability. It's about, like, what am I struggling with as a leader? Because I don't have to be perfect as a leader. If anything, I got to be seen as another person I can really connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in my experience, leading teams in the past, I've always been very open. I don't share everything in my life, but I've always been very open about my own sort of, at times, my own struggles. I mean, it depends on the particular moment and whether it feels appropriate, but I don't try to sort of put up an image of somebody who's got everything together and is perfect in every way, because nobody believes that anyways. So allowing them to actually see us. And again, there are appropriate things to share and not share. I'm not saying everything is on the table all the time, but allowing them to see your humanity, I think is essential. And also they can relate to you and they can connect with you. Like that's a path for them having empathy for you. And by empathy, I don't mean like sorrow or like compassion. I mean like them being able to resonate with your own emotions, which they can do if they see that you have them. Right. Yeah. Is an important part for them to be motivated to work with you towards your common objective.
One of the best compliments I got facilitating a workshop at a manufacturing plant, and I didn't plan it, but I talked about some struggles with my dad, and unexpectedly, but it was like the feedback I got after, it's kind of like, that was really good that you shared that, because you made a connection with us. You're not someone speaking on emotional intelligence and that you're the master. It's just, we're all in this together. And talk a little bit more about, because the witness thing resonates with me, and explain that to our listeners a little bit more.
So I have this speech that I give, that the title of it is "Sometimes All We Need Is a Witness." And it's, as a culture, especially having gone through some of the massive events that we have over the last few years with COVID, and just the isolation and all the things that came from that, the fear and the so many other things. We, there's a drive to go in to find a therapist or something. So, well, I'm feeling kind of bad. I need the doctor of the mind, the doctor of the heart. I need a therapist to help me out. And I'm a big fan of therapy. I've done a lot of it. You don't get to be this amazing with a lot of therapy. I've spent a lot of money in therapy. So I'm a fan of it in the appropriate setting, but I do believe that therapy is a major intervention made necessary by the lack of 1,000 smaller interventions along the way. And those little interventions are actually many of them can be what I call witnessing. And that's looking at somebody and seeing them, like actually seeing them, taking a minute to see them as they are in that exact moment. It doesn't mean that you can see everything, but like opening yourselves up to see what is the way that they're walking, what is the way that they're holding their posture, what are the expressions on their face. It's amazing how very little we often take the time to just sort of observe somebody's physiology because we're so busy going on with whatever's in our head, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's the first one, seeing. The second one is hearing. And it really has to do with, so much of what we are saying is not found in our words. It's found in the way that we express those words through the physiology of our voice, right? Mm-hmm. So much of our emotion is contained in our voice. So if I say something like, Trevor, boy, you sure look good today, it's like, you put that on paper, it sounds like a compliment, but actually I'm clearly pissed off that you're, I don't know, shaved or something. I don't know, whatever it is. So it's really listening to the tone of someone's voice and trying to listen for, is there something else there that I'm picking up on, or that is worth picking up on. And then the last thing is really feeling. And that has to do with, it's this really interesting observation that everything that we experience in our life, including Trevor, when I experience you, mm-hmm. I am experiencing you 100% through my body. Like everything that I am experiencing of you is happening in my body. Mm-hmm. And so if I can have awareness of what's happening in my body as I'm speaking to you, that can give me some insight as to what's going on in your life. So you could sort of sum this all up in saying, you could call all this sort of a kind of seeing. I'm really trying to see you on a deeper level. And why? Why am I trying to see you on a deeper level? I believe, and I don't mean to be too airy-fairy, but I believe that our greatest purpose on this earth is to form connection, and to form connection for the purpose of love. And I don't mean being in love with everybody that you work with, but like I just don't think there's anything more important than that. And so witnessing is an opportunity. It is something that we can do. We all do it a little bit, but could we be more intentional about that? And what kind of results do we get from that in our lives? My experience is when we take the time to witness people, they feel seen, they feel heard, they'll say things like, you just get me. Do you want to help somebody who just gets you? I know you. Yeah.
And it just takes, and it doesn't, like you said, it just takes that presence. Mm-hmm. And what I thought, like, you had to talk more, right? Oh, so I'm going to repeat what you just said and to show that I'm listening. But, and like when I'm on some of my raw skills, but really it's just sitting there and how am I feeling when this person's talking? Mm-hmm. Can I feel that vibration of, what's really going on for them? Does that just help me ask the next question? And I just love and I've used your phrase, like, sometimes we just need a witness, right? We don't need a solution. We just need someone to see us. Right. And sometimes that's hard. But as in manufacturing, we're together 40 to 60 hours a week, right? And, in the same building usually. Mm. It's an interesting dynamic. So it's a game changer when you can be somebody's witness, and it's like, you know what, he does get me. And so when we have an issue, that I can get behind you because I see who you are, you see who I am. There's a level of trust, and we can just focus on the problem and not like think about, well, what's really behind this? What's Corban really asking? So we can kind of keep that separate. I went in the gym the other day early in the morning, and there's a guy on the elliptical, and like he looks at me, and like I know he's got headphones on, but I say, hey, good morning. I kind of raise my hand, and then like there's like no acknowledgement, and for a split second I'm like, am I invisible? Like, but it made me think of you and what you talk about and this talk, and it's kind of like, and I'm not usually I'm not worried about it, but it was just kind of like, oh, that's really weird. There's another it's only him and I in this room. And it's like, maybe he didn't see me.
Right. I mean, that's the contrapositive to this point. It's like, it is the opposite that proves the rule, right? It's like, how did you feel when he didn't even acknowledge you, when he didn't even see you? Like, forget about hearing you or feeling you, he didn't even see you. That felt pretty crappy. I get that. Yeah.
It was just odd. It's kind of like, well, it's not, obviously he's got stuff going on and
Sure.
headphones on and doesn't want to engage at all. But it's kind of like, but it just made me reflect on, hey, you know what? It is important when you walk down that sidewalk or like you walk down the shop floor and you just walk by someone that you don't regularly know, like to make eye contact and just recognize like, hey, I see you, man.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get into a deep conversation, and that can just build some connection on its own.
There's a reason, Trevor, why there's one therapeutic practice is something called eye gazing. Now, it gets really uncomfortable really quickly. Like if you think you're good at looking somebody in the eyes, try that for 30 seconds and see how good you really are, let alone 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But it's because there's a level of intimacy and connection there because we can really see into people and people can really see into us. And it doesn't take that long. Like you're saying, if you're on the shop floor and you walk around and you just make eye contact for a second with somebody, you are saying to them, I see you and you matter enough to me to acknowledge you in this micro fraction of a second. That's like powerful. Like I think that alone, a lot of people don't do it because they don't think they have time, but man, oh man, it makes a big difference. And I know when somebody looks at me in the eyes when they're just walking by, I feel a connection with them. Like even if it's just tiny, it's like, oh, I mattered enough for them to look at me for a second. And it costs basically nothing. And everybody benefits from it.
I was in Hawaii at the Genos Emotional Intelligence Conference in 2019. And there's a buddy of mine now, Sven. We didn't know each other. And the exercise was to stand up and to someone that you didn't know and look in each other's eyes for 3 minutes in silence. And so I tried it at a manufacturing plant for 1 minute. It didn't go over very well. It was like, okay, that was maybe a little bit too much for us. So I think maybe if I cut the exercise down to 10 seconds, they get the point. But yeah, it was powerful. And you know what? it was interesting. Like with Sven, I got to kind of like almost like see him in a different way, and I didn't really know him. But that whole back to the manufacturing and the connection is that it matters, and it's in our control, and it doesn't cost us anything, and we just want to be intentional on that. So Ryan, any stories you want to leave our listeners with here today?
Oh man, I got stories for days. I got to think of the most relevant story. Well, I've got a bit of a story. I've got a story from a time when a career many, many years ago, where I was in charge of sales for a company, and it was a big sale that we were doing. So I think it was about $500,000 sale, which to me at the time was a quite a large sale. We were selling accounting systems, something called ERP systems, which I think probably is familiar with, enterprise resource planning. And I sold, should I say the systems? I'm probably not allowed to. Okay. Anyways, I sold these systems. All right. And I remember going to the sales presentation, and there was one area that I didn't know that we could do for them. I'd had something to do with the bill of materials, and there was some kind of complex way that they wanted to do their bill of materials. It didn't seem like we could handle very well. And I was just hoping that the CEO didn't ask me this question about this, like, how do we handle this? And would you believe it? He never asked me. We went through with flying colors, and it looked like we were about to get the sale, which was wonderful. I remember going home that night and looking myself in the eyes and thinking, I don't think I want to be this man. I don't think I want to be the person that prioritizes compensation over connection, commission over connection. And this is a really slippery path. Even though I didn't lie. There was no sneaky business. And so I remember the next day I went in the office and I called him up and said, hey, his name was Mark. Since I'm not saying the company, I probably say his name. His name was Mark. I say, Mark, hey, I was thinking, I don't know if you considered this bill of materials issue, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention because this was me prioritizing my connection with him over the commission check that I would get if he bought the system. And he stopped for a second and he said, yeah, I think we can handle it in this way. And I said, I almost jumped off my chair and like did a dance. I was like, are you sure about that? Like, have you considered all the, we talked about it a little bit. And he said, yeah, I think we can handle it this way. I said, do you want my team to give you a call, make sure that's okay? He's like, no, I'm actually comfortable with it. This is I've seen enough. This is good enough. And then he thanked me. He thanked me for prioritizing. He didn't use that language, but he thanked me for prioritizing the connection with him, because we developed a really nice rapport. I'd been working with him for 6 months on the sale. And so, this is a happy result. But regardless, I know that if I walked away from that and I had not prioritized connection with him over the compensation I was going to get, I know that I would have felt I wouldn't have felt good about that. And as a result, he continued to do more and more business with us. So the end result ended up being about $1.5 million over time. And I think that I can attribute that to, because he would talk about how much he trusted us. He talked about that scenario a number of times, that I brought up a problem to him that he would jeopardize the sale. And so I think that's just one example of how
that's awesome.
Yeah. Connection is the thing that drove our, our trust, and that drove the sales.
There's so many ways that we can tie that back into manufacturing, because it's like, I always like to talk about, like, you and I are having a conversation. Over here is the problem, because you and I have a relationship and we're talking about this problem. And we don't have to like create this facade of like, how do I break this down to Corban? It's kind of like, can we just talk and just like say what it really is?
Yeah.
And then there's no risk, because anytime we try to do a dance, you're going to be seen dancing, right? And it's gonna come back to you. So that's a great story that we can apply. So this flies by, and as you and I got to know each other, and I was, and I'm working on my relationships with my son, my daughter, and I talked to you about getting some counseling for myself, and didn't actually kind of get that, because I know that's a lot of your background and your business and connections, but just you being a witness to me in that conversation really helped me be a better dad, and just kind of showing up in that conversation. So I think that's just, for me, that's the resonating of connection, right? And then sometimes just talking to someone else and having that witness, and we can show up as our best selves when we are more open to like, who are we really are. Let people kind of see us. And so I just want to thank you for that, right? And our relationship, and for our listeners who now know you, you've got some exciting happenings with HopeGuide, and how do they follow this journey, and what is this journey?
Yeah, thanks for that. So they can see the work that I'm doing at hopeguide.com. That's HopeGuide.com. Or they can visit me at CorbanDavidJenai.com. Corban, oh gosh, I'm going to have to spell that, CorbanDavid. Jenai, the tricky one, JENAI.com.
We will have the links in the notes as well.
Perfect.
And what is the mission there?
The mission at HopeGuide is first and foremost, it's to reduce the barrier of entry to trauma healing for people. It's a very, very difficult thing to treat. It's a very difficult thing to solve, and yet it's epidemic in our world. And so it turns out it is very much a solvable problem if you know where to look, if you know who to talk to, and if you can do it in community. So HopeGuide is a community to help people to heal from the hard things that happened in their past. And sometimes we call that trauma. Sometimes it's just the challenges of life, but they can go and be witnessed by other people, be a witness to them, but also work with guides to help them know like what is the next step in their healing journey.
Thanks for everything you do, Corban. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks very much. It was good to be here.
Hey folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, the key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.